Hello, everyone. Hey.
Hi. Hello. Hello, everybody.
Look at
Hello,
all these
it's
happy
Sally.
faces. Hey, Sally.
Julie.
You've got a copy of the book.
Just in time. Thank
Oh
you.
my God.
Uh,
Oh,
So
I'm glad it made
exciting.
it to you.
Beautiful. Can't wait to hear it.
Oh,
It's gonna
Turn
be
on.
good. Hello, Edelmans.
Hello, lovely ladies.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Tracy.
how you doing?
I'm doing great. I owe somebody a letter.
You probably do.
Yes, I do.
I'm standing out by my mailbox in 20-degree weather waiting for it.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. But it'll be coming.
Okay.
Hey, Lance.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Good, good. Happy Hanukkah to all who celebrate.
We will be lighting the candles soon.
Hey, Robert. Oh, good. Julie found the reactions.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, good to see you. Thank you for coming.
You bet.
Oh my goodness, so many folks. Hello to everybody, old friends, new friends. I'm just so excited. Great to see you all. Goodness, goodness.
Catherine. All right.
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Oh, Rebecca says, congratulations, Catherine, and to Meadowlark Press.
Oh,
Thanks for
thank
being here,
you.
Rebecca. Oh, you've got your copy too.
Oh my gosh.
Good.
Congratulations, Catherine.
Oh,
Congratulations,
thanks.
Lindsay and Meadowlark.
Thank you. And thanks for all of your support.
Oh, my pleasure. Not hard with such an amazing poet and book.
Oh, thank you.
Ain't that the truth? We are going to just take another minute or so to let people get comfortable. So if you forgot your snack in the kitchen, go grab it. We're going to make sure that everybody who wants to join us is able to join us. And then if you need to leave, leave at any point. If you need to leave and come back, do that. Just do what you need to do, and we'll be here. We're going to walk through some housekeeping, and then we're going to have Catherine read some poems. We're going to ask her some questions, and I'm going to put a lot of links in the chat. So if you want to go ahead and open up your chat, then you will find the links that I send, and you can also put stuff in there. So, very good. 23 folks so far. Appreciate you all deciding to spend a Monday evening with us. Oh, you might hear the train every once in a while. Oh, we still have some people coming in. Excellent. Pat says, hi, Susanna, glad you can see it. Catherine says, congratulations, Catherine and Meadowlark, a wonderful book. Thank you all for putting things in there. Oh, we've got more people coming in. Wonderful. Ed, congrats, Kathy. Nice to see you after all these years. May says, congrats to Catherine and Meadowlark. Thank you all so much. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. I am Lindsay Garcia. I am the poetry editor and publicist at Meadowlark Press, and here with me is our publisher, Tracy Million Simmons. Catherine is the winner of the 2025 Birdy Poetry Prize, which is particularly special. This is something Tracy founded 8 years ago now, and it has just steadily grown since. So we really love celebrating the modern poets, and I appreciate that you all do too. A couple of housekeeping things. I'm going to mute everyone in case, there are things like trains. Um, At the end, you can unmute yourselves when we have an open floor for discussion. But in the meantime, I'm going to mute you. Catherine, I think that includes you, so make sure you unmute yourself. Okay, excellent. We are recording this, so you are all aware. We have a Meadowlark Press YouTube channel and Facebook page and Instagram, so on and so forth. So if you want to relive this night again, or if you want to share it with friends who haven't been able to make it tonight, you can find it there. So follow our website, meadowlarkbookstore.com. I'll put that in the chat. Follow us on YouTube, and you'll find all of these awesome videos. This, and also earlier this year when we got to announce that Catherine was the winner, which was a blast. Okay, I think most of you have found the chat button. So if you haven't, it is on the very bottom. It's a cute little box that says chat. Feel free to chat throughout the whole reading and discussion in there. I'm going to keep an eye on it and pass along your words of congratulations for Catherine. We are going to hold questions until the end to make sure that we have enough time to get through all of the wonderful poems. Also, if we do have time at the end and you would like to verbally say your question or comment, you can also go down below and click participants, and you will have the option to raise your hand with that button. You can also send reactions like cute little hearts or clapping hands, balloons. So feel free to use those throughout to help celebrate Catherine too. Okay, I'm also going to include the book order link in the chat. So for those of you who have already ordered a book, thank you. For those of you who have not ordered a book and would like to order a copy, one, you can ask Catherine. She's got some, I think. And two, you can order it online through the Meadowlark bookstore. So I will make sure you have that information. I will also include our social media links and our website. So let me tell you about the woman of the hour, and then we'll get going. Catherine Anderson, the Catherine Anderson, has published 5 collections of poetry, including Everyone I Love Immortal, Woman with a Gambling Mania, The Work of Hands, In the Mother Tongue, and Afloat. She also published a memoir about her late brother who had non-speaking autism, My Brother Speaks in Dreams, of Family, Beauty, and Belonging. She has been recognized for her poetry by the Massachusetts Artists Foundation, the Southern Humanities Review, the I-70 Review, and the Crab Orchard Review. Over the years, her poems have appeared in the Southern Review, the Harvard Review, and the Dunes Review, among many others. She lives in Kansas City, where she has worked for over 20 years assisting new immigrants and refugees to become skilled interpreters. Without further ado, everyone, please join me in welcoming Catherine Anderson.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And really, thank you. And I can never say it too many times to Meadowlark Press for choosing Afloat. I've been so honored to be part of this wonderful, magnificent press. And thank you all for joining us. I see so many old friends and, of course, new friends and good buddies. So it's just a really, really lovely to see you all here. What I thought I'd do to start us off, I'm going to read the title poem of the book, Afloat, to kind of give you an idea of really of how I think the whole collection kind of comes together. I'm still trying to figure that out a little bit, how this collection coheres. But I do think that what I'm trying to do is really establish an intimate dialogue with the reader and try to place us, you, the reader, and me, the poet, kind of in a certain place in a certain time in our era, in our generation, and experience what we experience. So this first poem kind of takes you to perhaps a bedroom or a couch or some place where you would be sharing an intimate conversation with someone you love. And I just am putting you in that place right now so that other parts of the poem make sense. They're talking about childhood, supposedly, to people. And so there'll be some references, some quotes, and I'll just go like that when I'm quoting, so you know what I'm doing. So I'm going to start out. Afloat. Easy to imagine the one you love as a child. Flush skin, bright hair, so like water running through your fingers, eyes agleam in their glance toward you. This lover has your full attention, the story about to begin. your hand tracing the forehead, the soft plum of a cheek, the beloved known as only the beloved is known. After the pond, box turtle, those guys, your lover's eyes settle on a bedroom window frame, a smudge on the ceiling, the eyes of a child at rest within the story, the long exhaled breath of it. The story will continue, but now a breath it must take. Your lover's mind floating on its back in the pond, your lover silent for a moment, arms spread wide like a T, attempting the back float, the technique that could save a life. What every child learns first, reverent in the positioning, face up, ears and hair submerged in small tides of the water, the swimmer taking careful breaths with you, spotter and listener. The one you love rests on the water's skin, eyes shut, then open, the child you see in that face, your lover who will never drown. And this next poem is really is the first beginning of the book. And it's titled Midnight on My Birthday. It's probably self-explanatory. You'll kind of get it. Midnight on my birthday. Night has settled, the moon high over the rain gutter. I walk naked through the rooms of my house, feel my collarbone ferried from shoulder to shoulder, my breasts unloosed, brushed by a curtain. Through a window, I watch my neighbor run his pale wolfhound under the streetlights, their 6 legs pumping as they turn a corner, then disappear into the new leaves of the lindens. I stand in this tender skin bestowed by my mother, who smoothed her palms all over it, this woman who carried me from a darkness known only to her into a light both of us could see. I think I kind of group these as loosely autobiographical, but not, in the sense that, every poet works, from the standpoint of a speaker. And, using that very transparent pronoun I, wherever it goes, is such a flexible form for the lyric. And, sometimes people ask me, did these things really happen? And, the mystery of a poem is sometimes they have happened in reality and sometimes they haven't. But the poet gets to pick and choose and, and offer the poem for the reader to enter into, maybe even see themselves as that I. So that's how I answer it. But I'll have to tell you truly, I've never walked naked through my house, so don't worry about me there doing things like that. So this next one is called Morning Fog, and I'll just give you just a tiny bit of a background. Where I grew up in southern Michigan, not far from Detroit, we were right on one of the Great Lakes, which was never in the pantheon of Great Lakes, although as school children we put it there. Lake St. Clair, a wonderful, beautiful lake. And we had a beach that had this beautiful name, Metropolitan Beach. So you can see it was very much an urban city beach. But because it was such a, humid place, there was fog constantly, all the time, all through summer, into spring, into fall. So this poem is called Morning Fog. So hungry, it slides through the open door, passes by the kitchen, the living room, like a traveler come home, turning corners until it departs through the screen of the back window, above the bed where my parents slept, their heads tilted north. The two, now boxed, now silent, buried on a common hill against a sky, brushing cloud intervals that last, then fade. When my father died, I carried paper and glass to the basement. When my mother died, I took to sea. Leaving port in the fog, the captain chanted the cloud-carved islands we passed in the bay, each one a breath. My mother gone, my father gone, the captain's voice fading as we hit the open sea. And of course, the very end does not occur on Lake St. Clair, but in Boston. And I remember when my mother had died, I was living in Boston at the time. I did take the boat to Provincetown, which went into international waters. My mother was from Florida, so the sea, the ocean, the water was very important to her, and I wanted to kind of remember her that way. So this next poem is actually, some people have told me they like it a lot, and so I thought I would read it. Let me just find it. It is called Afternoon in Guanajuato, which is in central Mexico. And it's pretty straightforward. I'll tell you, it took me really decades to finish this poem for a lot of reasons. I needed to really figure out what I was trying to say. It took a long time. It refers to Antonio Machado in the poem, and I often have translated just for myself. I haven't published much. I translate into Spanish. From Spanish to English rather, because I'm an English speaker, so I would translate into English. His poems, and I found that that's a remarkable way for me, at least, to lift off imagery and to try to capture new sounds, and new images. So, Afternoon in Guanajuato. If I knew the street, I would show you where I once found Antonio Machado's golden spine of poems set in Gothic type, laid out in a market bin to pick up and hold like a ripe mango. If I could show you how the sound of poetry spoken in any language becomes as sacred as love, you would see me carry those poems in the small cradle of my arms down the tight streets of the old mining town, placed like a silver bowl on a table between the high mountains of central Mexico. I sat down in a cafe among others to read these pages shipped from Madrid, the volume stitched with the thick string used by a butcher to tie a pound of meat. Inside, I found jasmine and roses, a silence to slit the sky. Though the poet's griefs were not mine, I felt the mineral shadow of a tongue incarnated as salt, words cut into plains of stone. I read quietly, like the nun on a train in one of his poems, a young woman whose face held back everything she felt. And this next poem actually is, I have to get these in order already. This one. This poem takes place in actually a neighborhood north of Boston, where I worked for many years with Cambodian immigrants and refugees. I was a teacher later, but first I worked as a newspaper reporter for a community newspaper, and I got to know the community very, very well. And it was a rough time. And I've written this poem in the spirit of hope in our time. But I will tell you, people were not treated well even back then, 30, 40 years ago. Arson, harassment, police profiling, huge sweeps through the community of Revere to pick up Cambodians. So, but this poem, to me at least, stands out as a beacon of hope because there were people helping others during this time period. So it takes place during the Cambodian New Year, which wonderfully is often celebrated around the same time, usually, depending on the lunar calendar, as Passover. And so that would be, kind of early spring, that time period. And so, elements of that weather are throughout the poem. All right, the word samsara. If you were trying to understand a time from the past and how it repeats in the present, if you were trying to comprehend the whole spectrum of beauty and evil on earth, and if you were not ready to utter the word hope, even in your mind, you would be wise to think about rain falling outside the window of a rented house converted into a Buddhist temple, where a Cambodian monk sat, his golden robe crossed over his left shoulder, the right one bare in deference to the senior monk near him. You'd remember the monks came here to heal their own people and the people they lived beside. You'd recall the long sacred chant, the green and orange colors of the temple, the children who came out of the rain with their parents to this modest house set among others. If you reflected long enough and recalled everything, the elders who closed their eyes as they prayed, the families who brought bowls of rice for the monks and waited for them to eat first after prayers. If you thought deeply, you might use the word samsara from the Katha Upanishad to describe the phenomenal world and its cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, a word whose Pali and Sanskrit roots suggest the idea of wandering, as we all do, each on our own eternal wheel of desire and loss. You would be grateful to those monks, and you would try hard to grasp the word only for a moment. Thank you. So I have ended that particular section. And I'm not sure, Lindsay, if you wanted to float into questions or should I go on?
Yeah, I would love to ask a question if I may.
Oh,
First, absolutely beautiful reading. And we have so many comments about people who love your poems and ones that really stick out with them and ones they remember. And I so vividly remember reading Midnight on My Birthday as the first one and going, this manuscript really blows me away already. And that power keeps throughout. So good job. My question. As a fellow poet, you hear the quotes like "Never let the truth get in the way of a good story," that Mark Twain quote, or the Jean Cocteau quote, "The poet is a liar who always speaks the truth." In this autobiographical or not section, how do you know when to make that choice to embellish or imagine things up, to make it more interesting or impactful? How do you do that?
wow. I always pause over questions like that. I kind of liked good old Samuel Clemens. He even lies about his name, doesn't he?
Yes.
Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens. And Jean Cocteau, gosh, what a beautiful poet he was, and artist. He's buried south of Paris, isn't he? In a church, Saint Blaise, I believe. And because he's drawn all these plants that surround the church, I think. And on his grave, it says, I stay with you. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that the most? So
That's,
Saint
and
Blaise,
doesn't he?
yeah, St. Blaise is the one. I don't know if you've ever done this, gone to church, Christian Catholic church, where you are blessed with the two candles by your throat, a blessing.
Mhm.
Anyway, I think that comes from St. Blaise. But all right. Anyway, digress. And everyone knows I digress. Um, well, I think what you do is, that magical eye, if it's either the, Emerson's transparent eyeball, or if it's your own eye, uppercase I, you're really trying to go deep, and ask the question of, what does this mean to me? Why am I so interested in this? And how authentically can I respond to the material that I'm wanting to write about, the content? And what zings for me? And I think it's a personal choice from for a poet, or any artist really. That you either get on the train that takes you away, or you try to be faithful to your memory. And sometimes I get on that train, and sometimes I just go back and try to be as faithful to the memory as I can, but not very often, because I don't find memory to be all that exciting sometimes. But always you're trying to to really convey the experience, to really make it vivid for the reader, to be the witness, to this beautiful life that we're all, in witness to. And or the beautiful side of life that we're witness to, or the tragic side. But you're really trying to make it essentially visually, through sound, through taste, through smell, all of those senses, to make it real for the reader. So I don't think I've really answered your question. but
I'll take it. I think you have. I think it's a matter of, as I'm
yeah,
reiterating what you have already said, just adding more senses to it, adding more to it that would make it appealing for the reader and that would immerse them in that experience. So whatever that takes,
yeah,
even though you're staying true to the content itself.
yes. I mean, immersion is what it is. And, you're trying to get an authentic echo to what you feel and what the experience has been, I think.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I
Tracy,
know.
do you have anything you wanted to say for that? Okay, let us continue.
All right. This next portion, I'll read about 4 poems. Kind of focused on, what you would call the sung and unsung heroines of life. Just a way to categorize it. This very first poem is really based on an interesting story an artist friend of mine told me who had been doing research at Kansas Medical University's archives. And she found the description, it was the object itself of how medical students were taught childbirth when they were in the 18th and 19th century. And it's a very unusual thing. And they usually would create these dolls, and the dolls would be, an example that could show the doctors, mostly men, of course, how, a child was born. And so I was just really intrigued by that. And I did research on a number of these already. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to write about this, of course. So it's going to start out, the references in the first line, Galatea would be, Pygmalion's beautiful designed doll that came to life, thanks to Aphrodite. So here we go. Miniature woman carved from ivory, 17th century. On viewing this Galatea laid inside a velvet box, of course, I think of my own body and the body of my mother and her mother before. No one knows why the figure was made. One theory is that physician apprentices, gentlemen more familiar with the birth of foals, were taught to remove the ivory mound of the figure's abdomen as you would untop a butter dish. Inside, they would see the beaded intestines, and further down, a piece of red yarn curled to resemble an umbilical cord within the delicate cup of the simulated uterus and shell of placenta. Nestled inside the hollow lay a carved infant's head and body, smooth as the moon. The gentleman saw no vagina in this figure, only a cleft between the tiny bone mother's legs as they plucked out the infant with blunt, ink-stained fingers. Because the anatomy was imprecise, the figure could have been merely decorative, shown off in the parlor after dinner. Standing over the ivory figure in its box, were these men wrestling Aristotle's argument that the soul lives separate from the body? Were they keen to know how to stanch despair or halt life's cruelties? Surely they agreed on the laws of the wedge and lever, on Paracelsus's belief in the curative use of mercury and salt. But could they comprehend how a woman's body floats on a plane of time? I wouldn't blame their fumbling if I knew they were awestruck by female existence, or even as startled as I am after a shower when I glimpse my own silk interior and realize I resemble all women in that dark-petaled star from which every human has emerged. Kind of on the theme of childbirth, I will tell you this story, and I have my dear cousins to thank for doing the research of the grandmother we share, and the story itself is nestled within the poem. Every sparrow fallen. My mother's mother was banished from her home after giving birth out of wedlock. The baby boy was taken from her and placed in a Hell's Kitchen orphanage. During the pandemic of 1918, she came back to New York City as an Army nurse to work at the Embarkation Hospital. I've known her only from photographs. When I think about her then, I see her counting rolls of bandages and vials of blood, carrying water to soldiers in their beds. And later, as it would be her job, I see her walking among the bodies lining the morgue, a sign on the door she opens: do not enter, do not touch. Every sparrow fallen, the city gray as a knife blade. Sometimes I imagine a boy about the same age as my grandmother's abandoned son would be. He's waiting outside the bronze doors of the hospital. He watches a mule-hitched wagon lead one coffin after the other over the rail tracks to a graveyard. At the turn of dusk, he sees her come down the steps, starched nurse's cap fixed to her bun, red cape flared like a burning wing. So, and this next poem is a little bit more jubilant, I will say. I wanted to capture Sylvia Plath at her best. I think very often we think of the dark Sylvia, but this time I wanted to really, show her enthusiasm, her curiosity, her just sheer energy regarding poetry. And also another poet too is involved, and you'll see. Sylvia Plath in the Night Realm. A few ways we could understand her. Think how she just missed Dylan Thomas, launched straight off to the White Horse Tavern after the end of his reading. In her lucent eye, she saw them both raise a foamy glass to the muse of fracture and revolt. How to fire it, how to keep it, she'd asked the poet. Once she caught up with him, blocks ahead in his canter through the village. Their dialogue in her mind, straight up, swift, sprung by chance on the street, the two whispering their griefs, not as lovers, but as passing gods of the night realm. Or remember how hot it was that summer in Manhattan, the end of her apprenticeship and its bridled fissure of art from life. Remember the hotel rooftop where everything changed. She peeled off the tight lingerie and silk hose under her skirt and threw it all to the muggy wind. So. And this next poem is actually one that comes out of actually an experience. I did hear Allen Ginsberg in the 1970s at the old Jewish Community Center on Holmes Road in Kansas City. And I drove around and found that old site, which unfortunately is pretty crummy right now, which is too bad. But I had to see it in order to write this poem. This poem is actually titled For Allen Ginsberg's Mother. Naomi, who smiled to the moon, her 6 dark hairs on the wen of her breast, the pink nightgown she wore in the Bronx, her lentil soup made for God in his sadness. A woman who conceived her son in a flash of light, so minute, all the hills echoed, as the universe continued its brilliance and despair, a sharp bolt lost to a hymn. For the teenage Allen, who stayed home to save her, for brother Eugene, with tears in his eyes. When we die, we become an onion, a cabbage, their mother said. Things lost, past, gone, caw, caw. 17, 18 years old, soon to leave our own mothers, we stood listening one night to Allen chant William Blake outside the Jewish Community Center with its arc-pointed roof raised to the sky. And all the hills echoed, as a balm lifted trees. Oh, strange Naomi, how to sing the poetic, how to make an edifice of love and press it into permanency. And really, I just intended also to pay homage to Allen Ginsberg, who took care of this seriously sick woman and loved her dearly. And this is told in Kaddish, the publication from New Directions that has a background to the whole poem itself. And Kaddish is actually for Naomi herself. Well, that ends that particular section. So I think we have questions.
I love that section.
Oh, thank you.
Tracy has a question for you.
When I was reading your book, I very much, it made me want to celebrate being a woman more, certainly through words. How has writing about other women impacted you as a woman, as a writer?
Yeah, that is such an interesting question. I think that for me, the only honest way I can write about lived experience is to write as a woman. Because, I take things in a very sensory way. And, the sound, the voice of someone speaking, the variations of pitch, just the presence of being a woman. So that is one way for me to, kind of be authentic. So many women's lives, I think, are just fascinating, are just astonishing, like the women that I've written about here. I mean, there's so much variety to them, so much the highs and the lows, so much depth that, for me, honestly, to write about those things I really want to write about, I have to actually, look toward women. I mean, I think that might be a cop out of an answer. But that's what it has been for me. I mean, for a long time too, I did, really believe that poetry should be a poetry of advocacy. And I still do believe that to some extent, although I don't think that's the only place for poetry. And so, many of my poems were purposely, written about low-income women that I knew very closely, and whose lives I observed and advocated for very often. But I think more now in my age, one say, I've just kind of taken the long view and, tried to see how women's lives, fit into the course of time, mostly within our era, within our generation, or and how we, put together all of it. So, I don't know. That's such
That's really beautiful. I have a question to piggyback off of that. So these women that you write about in particular, this was a good selection, but you also have more in here. How do you get to the heart of these individuals? How do you pick what is most important to talk about them?
wow. I think, a research to trying to understand the full picture. I don't believe that much in individualism. I mean, I do in a way, but I do believe that we're all, connected within an environment, within a time frame, within a history, and that knowing ourselves, knowing who we are in that wave, in that, grand arc, um, helps bring up, images and different, entry points to understanding something. So I go into it with questions, why did my grandmother have to abandon a baby? I mean, and why was she kicked out of New York City? She had to go to Chicago. I mean, then go back to New York City. And then she had to leave New York to Florida. She had a whole different life. Why did that happen to her? In 1918, 1920? What was going on? So, I mean, those are the kinds of questions that would, keep me rolling. You know, Sylvia Plath, who is such an incredible poet, and I'm just drawn to in so many ways. I wonder what made her feel that vibrancy of poetry. What got her curious. Why did she like Dylan Thomas so much? I love Dylan Thomas, by the way. And not many people do because he's kind of sentimental and, hyper romantic. But you want to know, you start out with questions like that and just keep pursuing them, I think. So,
That's a good point. Yeah, everything starts with a question.
yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for recognizing them, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Why, sure. A pleasure.
Shall we continue?
All right. This last question, this last section, actually, I've kind of thought of as, a series of dreams. And the reason I say that is they were kind of composed in a dreamlike state, which was during the time of the pandemic. And I think many of us had strange dreams. And also many of us, like me, experienced it as one long dream or nightmare, cut off from various aspects of reality, but other aspects of reality vivified and magnified, in an overwhelming way. And so what I'd like to do is just read you 4 different prose poems from the part of the book titled Almanac. And I'll just kind of start right in with number 1 and read all the way through them. Months have slipped by since my last visit to the sea. Laid down like a dinner plate on a table, the sea spreads north of the Missouri River. Beyond the river, bend into the plains. Driving along, all I see as far as the horizon is deep indigo, and between the trees, glimpses of water, still as an empty shelf. The sand lining the shore is white, with many bathers running in and out, chasing the waves. I never learned the name of this at sea or the bay where people gather. I simply expect it to appear 30 miles north of the city. Some people enjoy surfing, but I stay out of the deep end. No intimate of mine has ever joined me, but I do recall talking to people as we waited for the tide to come in. I got my toes wet, then my feet and ankles, and finally I was full in the water. A teenage boy laughed at me. A dog came to shore when I did and shook itself from head to tail. Days are usually sunny, but I don't mind an overcast hour or two as I sit alone wrapped in a towel on a low-slung lawn chair in the sand and read my book. If the towel I bring is big enough, I shape the end of it like a hood to pull over my head when it starts to rain. There is an interesting lane with row houses on one side facing the shore. They have a kind of Netherlandish look, tilted, tall, multicolored. I walk around and around them each time I visit. The predominant colors are yellow and red, the colors of tulips. I woke easily in the morning, returning from this dream. We were in day 100 of the pandemic. And this next one starts out. Albert Camus' novel, The Plague, was strongly criticized in its time. Some claimed Camus was not faithful to the act of resistance against the Nazis. The plague metaphor failed, they said, because the specific damage the microbe caused was personal, not communitarian. They claimed Camus had rejected history, and in so doing justified individual solitude. In a letter, Camus defended his art. Far from being installed in a career of solitude, I have, on the contrary, the feeling that I am living by and for a community that nothing in history so far has been able to touch. History, community, touch. One evening on TV, I saw windows filled with faces of those who didn't want solitude. The old, the middle-aged and young, adult, the ill and recovering. For those thrown into despair because they had lost a parent or a spouse, no one could say that being alone was their choice. The first person to succumb in our city was a school superintendent. His son said he had just come home from a magician's conference when he became ill. His father was someone who pulled scarves out of ears, floated the Queen of Hearts in the air, took off his hat to show a dove perched on his head. In this next section, I was alone, working from home. I didn't want a broken thread in my pant leg hem to further unravel. It had been raining all day, and now, the last hour before sunset, light poured from the parted clouds. I found a needle and thread. I set my leg with the torn hem on my knee, bunched my pant leg, and tilted it toward the window to see what I was doing. I could just make out the texture of the fabric against the dark thread. Birds appeared on a branch of the dogwood outside the window. a male cardinal and his gray-green mate, both flitting through the leaves, chasing each other. Soon the thread between my fingers balled up in my palm. I had been entranced by the birds. Giving up on the slipshod hem, I tied a minuscule knot and snipped it with kitchen shears. The male flew to a low wire and began calling to mark its territory, a border I could not see or even guess. I put away the shears, blades facing down, in the cracked jar from an art fair 10 years ago. I didn't want to misplace things and tried hard to keep track of where I last laid my pen, my eyeglasses, the book I was reading. Later, I would navigate through the rooms of my house, collecting those things without even thinking, like a bird steered by the fixed senses of its species. And this very last one I'll read. Oops, I just lost it. I know I am deathless, wrote Walt Whitman. For some reason, the statement made me wonder about the word desert and the phrase desert island. I learned it's an archaic form related to the adjective deserted. Today, I confess I am desert. I am wind. I am sand. I am the shoe heel of Amelia Earhart. I'm the eye tooth of Robinson Crusoe. I am Tom Hanks' face-smashed Wilson. I am the crux of rival fly lords Ralph and Jack. I am tears, bones, dust, ha. And that's it. Thank you. Oh, thank you, thank you. That was so much fun.
Truly excellent. We have a couple more questions for you, if that's okay.
Oh, sure.
You want to go? Okay. So this is a section full of prose poems, and that makes me wonder, craft-wise, when do you feel a poem should be a prose poem? How do you make that decision? Uh, why does this form suit these poems?
Oh, sure. Boy, that's that old question. What is a prose poem? I think for me, a prose poem just keeps going. It has a lot of density. It's heard as one flowing maybe enchantment, dream. It tries to keep that fictive dream going, where you don't break out of it. Um, I mean, for me at least, it's how I hear it. I mean, poems are always how I hear, the words coming. And so that's the best I can tell you is that for me, it looks like a brick. It feels like a brick. It has weight, it has that density that is very appealing for me in a prose poem. And in poetry in general. I like density, texture, thickness. Yeah.
It's nice to have the variety in here.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I was just thinking about writing during the pandemic, and I was curious I mean, as writers, I think we choose to spend probably a lot of time alone. How was your writing affected, or how was it different for you during like the enforced time alone versus chosen time for writing generally?
Yeah, I think it just hit us all very differently. I mean, I would tell you, fortunately, I did not lose anybody in the pandemic, and my heart goes out to those who really had to take care of very sick people. I mean, and I, didn't lose my job. I was able to work remotely from home, which happened to fall into a good place. Some people weren't able to do that. I had to go in, up and down different times and all that, but I did have the choice to work primarily from home. And I think, it was just a different phase. Writing during the pandemic, for me was a little bit crazy because I didn't know what to write about. And I just decided I would just, automatic writing, just whatever came to my head, which is why, the dense poems came out, I think. And I didn't know what they were at first. They were notes, journal notes and things like that. But eventually they began to have a shape. I was realizing I was tracking something. I'm not sure what I was tracking, but yeah, it was a pretty crazy, nutty time I think for any creative artist. In a way, because poets and other artists are, much more interior focused. It was not maybe as stressful as it was for other people. So, I hope it doesn't happen again. That's all I can say.
True that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your thoughtful reading, your thoughtful selection of poems to share with us, your thoughtful answers to our questions. We have some time left and would love to open the room to praise, questions, words of celebration. So go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your hand if you prefer. Stick it in the chat and I will be happy to share that with Catherine. Annie Newcomer says thank you.
Thank you for being great, Amy.
Good. And Rebecca says that magician superintendent is so poignant. Love that final ha in that last poem.
Thank you.
I have another question unless somebody else does. Hope we've got one in the chat. Let's see. Sam says, forgive my lack of remembrance for titles, but the poem referencing Machado in Mexico gave me chills.
Well, thank you.
Sally Smart says, very enjoyable. Sam says, thank you so much for sharing that. May says, absolutely amazing work. Beth says, beautiful poems and reading. Congrats, Catherine.
Thank you.
Julie, do you have a question?
Yes, please. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So these are very lovely and new to your work. So it looks like you enjoy free verse a lot. How do you decide the rhythm, the enjambments? Do you have a particular poetic technique that you favor or you aim for? Could you talk more about your form?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Julie, for that question. I think that's always a matter of I kind of go with the organic nature of whatever I want to write about. Um, what is lending itself to a certain form. Um, and so it's a matter of getting into the feeling of, whatever it is with the Allen Ginsberg, or Allen Ginsberg's mother poem. I kind of knew it had to be a little bit spread out, because there are different voices happening. And so I knew it would really be, extreme free verse. Some of the other poems that, fall into stanzas, in terms of telling the narrative or the story, I can feel that there needs to be a break at this point, for a transition, a shift. Um, these are not things I determine at the get-go. They kind of accrue over time, many layers. Of course, my dear friends who are poets and critics who are here in the audience, I very grateful to them because they give me, sound feedback and tell me when I'm dipping too far one way or the other way. So I think it just takes a lot of practice and a lot of going back over and over and over, and many, many drafts. I mean, I know that I've written 100 drafts for at least some of the poems in this book. So big piles of paper and lost in the ether of my computer. So it just takes a long time to be able to do it authentically and set out that way. So I hope that answers your question to some extent. Mhm.
Rebecca says time, practice, drafts, and friends. Yes. Agreed. Catherine says, I was so glad to hear you read Samsara, a very moving poem, and I also enjoyed hearing you read the prose poem, strong and effective.
Thank you.
Annie Newcomer asks, Catherine, how do you decide where you will go next with your work?
Oh, wow. Well, I don't know. I think since Lindsay brought up Jean Cocteau, I think I want to write about that idea of of St. Blaise. Um, I don't know, you kind of like I mean, I've been writing a longer piece. I'm not quite sure what it is. I call it the big thing. Um, and within it, there are all these, you know, natural um, descriptions of beauty and nature and cruelty of nature. And I think, where I'm, leaning toward is more of that, the tragedy and beauty of the world that we witness, and exploring that, more and more. I mean, I think everything I've written, I mean, the only two themes I have are love and death throughout my work. And I mean, that's a really broad spectrum and, from many angles. I mean, love is not always the beginning and death is not always the end, and just the paradoxes of those. So, I'll just keep going in that direction.
Beautiful. Ed says, your voice has evolved so much over 50 years, seeing the changes. That makes me wonder how this book is similar to or different from your previous books.
Oh my goodness.
And it's a big question.
Sure. Yeah, boy, I have been writing a long time now. I think about the same things. I mean, I've always written
Yeah.
about people who are on the margins, or we think of them as on the margins. I did grow up with a brother who did not really speak because he had nonverbal autism, non-speaking autism. We could understand him, and so I've always been interested in the play of language, in the sounds of language, and what is silent, and what's stated, and different ways of communicating in that sense. And so those themes kind of are all threaded through my work. I don't really I think I've not changed all that much. I mean, I think I've changed as a poet, but in terms of thematic content, it's been the same old thing forever. But I love that. I mean, I love what I write about, of course. Um, so I don't know. It's love and death. That's what it is.
I think we can say that about poetry back to the beginning of poetry.
Yeah. Yeah,
Some things will always inspire us as
absolutely.
humans. Yeah.
Yes.
Ed says your tone seemed quite different in mother tongue.
Oh, it seems different. Huh? Probably more in the mother tongue was my first book. You know how it is when you write a first book, and I was kind of young, not incredibly young. I was 29, I think. I mean, you're kind of like, a little shivery. So maybe there's just a little more boldness or confidence about it. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, it could be a little different then. And then that book was so much about my family too, and recent books, not quite so much. Or this one, not quite so much. So I don't know. Great to see my old friends from way back for many decades, because they've kind of probably wondered about what I'm doing with all this for so many years. So I'm always really happy to share with you all.
It's so sweet that everybody has gathered to celebrate you. And it makes me really want to read your other books now too. I've
Oh,
not had that fortune yet, but
thank
sounds
you.
like I've got a few.
Thank you.
Rebecca says, love this book and so glad to spend time in its pages with you tonight, Catherine.
Thank you, Rebecca.
That is perfect. Well, folks, this has been beautiful. Thank you, Catherine. We can't thank you enough. We're so glad that you're part of our Meadowlark family. We're so glad that you're just down the road from us. What a
Oh,
treat.
yes, that is
And
such a treat.
yeah,
And
we'll
thank
be
you all.
here for the next book.
Oh, great. Terrific. Lovely to see you all, my dear friends. I just wish you were all in one room in person, but this is good. This is great. So, well,
It-
take care, everybody. Have a good rest of the evening.
Thanks, everyone. And go get Catherine's book at meadowlarkbookstore.com, and we'll send out this recording when it's ready. Lester says, wonderful poems, Catherine.
Oh,
Have a great night, everyone.
bye-bye,
Thanks for
everybody.
coming. Bye.
Take care, everyone. Oh my goodness, so many folks. I wanted to say goodbye to everybody.
Right? We need to just have a tea time with everyone.
Oh, I know it. I went to high school with Sally Smart, went to graduate school with Ed Goon. There's my
That's
dad,
awesome.
Robert right there. Marcia, my lovely friend in Mexico. So it's just
Wow.
beautiful, beautiful to see you all. Yeah. There were so many um faces before. I couldn't really point out everybody's, yeah, but really, really nice, really beautiful. Thank you. And thank you to Metalark for making this all possible.
Anytime. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you, Catherine. This was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Bye.